It feels like a lot of the improvements that could be made to comics, a lot of the suggestions, a lot of the ways that they could, benefit. And I'm not talking like subjective things like the art or the story. I'm talking, you know, hard kind of details, just easy, obvious things to include sales. Why does it seem like those are impossible? I hear more and more people give ideas, including myself, and I just think I don't even, I'm talking about this, but why am I bothering? Why are we so defeated? Why does it seem like these easy things are impossible? Hey everybody, this is Perch. I catch myself every now and then, and maybe it's just the mood or the day, or doing this channel, whatever it happens to be. But I give suggestions, and I see every now and then I get somebody saying something very, like, "Hey, this is a good idea." And when it's somebody within the industry, like Ben Templesmith or Sean Gordon Murphy or somebody kind of weighing in, it's nice to hear that. It's good validation. But generally, when I give these ideas, I almost have a kind of internal defeatist attitude. Like I'm giving the idea, like, "Hey, I've sold comics for 30 plus years. Here's something that could be done. Wouldn't cost money. Very easy. Just tweak this a little bit. Would increase the chance of sales." And I feel in the background, even as the words are coming in my mouth, I'm thinking, but this is never going to actually happen. But nobody would do this, and it will never actually improve. Why? Why so negative? Why so negative? These things kind of haunt me. And I got somebody recently put a comment in the channel saying, "Hey, I'm unsubscribing. It's too negative. Too negative. The stuff on this channel." And that's fair. I think people should go and listen to what's going to make them happy. But why is it that simple ideas, why do we feel like they're impossible? I'm having to honk at somebody. There we go. Why is it we feel like these ideas are just never going to occur? Is it because, why? And I think there's a couple reasons for that. One is that we have a long history of comic publishers often, seizing defeat from the jaws of victory. They see really obvious simple things to improve their line, and they just take the opposite approach for no apparent reason, or sometimes it's an ego thing. And I think mostly this is for me. I've been in many retailer summits, many conversations with publishers, and I don't know how many times I'm having a conversation, and it's clear that the publisher, the VP, the whoever it happens to be, has really zero interest in talking to me or hearing any of these ideas, and they believe that they've got it all figured out, everything's fine. And invariably, I mean, the classic example I mentioned before, Ira, who used to work for Marvel, was head of their digital strategy and was making all the mistakes, just clearly blowing it. You have one of the most recognizable media properties in the world. You have, their parent company, Disney, who are making some very big strides in managing their digital experience. And Ira's like, it was a cocky, no, I've got it all under control. We know what we're doing. I mean, we are the market leader after all. I mean, and even statements like you wouldn't believe people would say out in public, like, well, we are number one for a reason. Do you know what that reason is? Because we're number one. Like, wait, what? That doesn't make any sense. But I mean, these are actual quotes I've heard coming out of people's mouths. And you hear that enough, and then you watch it fail. And you watch that executive get kind of rolled out of the company and some new one come in and they have the same attitude. And eventually you start to believe, well, there's a cultural problem at Marvel or DC or wherever it happens to be. There's just a cultural problem here. And for a long time, and I know a lot of other retailers kind of assumed that this was, mostly a Marvel problem, somewhat a DC problem, and the indies were, kind of, scrounging around for what they could get. But it really, the big ego and that the big reluctance to listen to ideas really happened at the top. And as time has gone by, I've changed my view on that. And part of that is, having talked to people at IDW or Dark Horse or Vault or Black Mask or some of these other places, you find a remarkable compliance into this culture. You see a remarkable amount of people who are, basically willing to kind of you not only sign up to the idea that Marvel is the leader and therefore we're never going to beat them, so we don't even need to necessarily try. We can't even conceive of a world where we could beat them. And two, like, but we're in comics, so we clearly know what we're doing. I think this is one of the problems that any industry gets into when you have a lot of people who, when it's a very small pond and you have people just in the industry, living in the industry, not really moving in and out of it, but just kind of shuffling companies. You get this very insular looking behavior of, we know what's right, we know what's best. It's very specialized knowledge that only we know. And everybody who's kind of coming in is just, yeah, they haven't learned what we've learned, so they don't know. They don't know, man. They don't know what it's really like. And there's that you have that at comics a lot. Not now, when I say comics, I should be clear. I'm not talking about the creators, although to some extent this attitude exists there from some, but more kind of the editors and higher, the senior management, the executives. There's this attitude of, this is a super specialized industry. It's not. There are lessons to be learned here that no other industry has, and therefore anyone who's survived in it for 5 to 10 years is an expert, and you really should keep your mouth shut until you paid your dues, none of which is true. And that, it's the way, the reason things are the way they are is because that's the only way they can be. And it's that last statement that I think is the really screwed up toxic one. Now, I should weigh in at this point and say, whenever somebody starts to complain about comics, the other factor, if you even are offering a suggestion of how things could be different, not even a complaint, literally a suggestion for a different thing. Today, you are labeled, most of the time, you're immediately labeled Comicsgate, which is weird in that I watched a creator label a young black woman Comicsgate because a young black woman said $4.99 is too expensive for me, and they were labeled "you're a comic skater," which is like, I mean, yikes! Is that the bar? To me, that starts to feel less about whatever you're labeling people as, and more about just being defensive about any change or any suggestion. It's become knee jerk at this point. Do you not like what we're doing 100%? Well, you must be part of a hate group. I mean, wow. It just that's screwed up. And by the way, though, that's why you see fewer and fewer people bothering in the first place to give suggestions. I mean, why bother? Or they keep it to DMs. I mean, I don't know how many DMs I've gotten where somebody has said, and I'm behind, thoroughly behind on email and direct messaging, by the way. I apologize to all of you who I'm not answering quickly enough. Anyway, I don't know how many I've gotten to say, hey, here's a suggestion. I could never say this in public, but here you go. Maybe you could talk about it on your show. It's a suggestion. And the suggestion is something like, comic books should come with an insert that could be removed from the comic that's a checklist of other comics being sold that month. I mean, these suggestions aren't things like all the women should have implants and be white. Nothing like, not that. People don't send me those suggestions. No, I don't want those suggestions. But anyway, they send me the most benign publishing kind of sales type ideas. Really good ideas. Some feasible, some not, but all good ideas. I mean, I'm glad people are finding this out. But it's like the comic industry itself is erecting this wall between people of and why? Like why in the world is that happening? Not only do you need the fans, you need their support, but I mean, newsflash, the comic industry is not throwing off, millions of dollars and making creators super wealthy and famous right now. It's not doing that. So therefore, a few ideas, not a bad idea, not a bad thing. We should weigh into that. But this barrier exists, and I think the end result of that is this feeling of defeatism. And I think it also pushes people into being, somewhat, for lack of a better word, somewhat radicalized. If you're told continuously that your ideas have no merit, not interesting, not worth listening to, and worse, your ideas are potentially bigoted and hateful, when there are things like the price of this comic is too expensive. And people, lots of people weigh in. By the way, I've had Twitter like, that's not why we said that. We said that because two of the followers were followers of another follower who was a follower of one of the YouTubers who's mean, or says horrible things. And it's like, okay, now we're playing 7 Degrees of Kevin Bacon on somebody who's offering a suggestion that comics are too expensive. I mean, good God, that's not helpful. And all it does is it keeps the industry very insular. And that's not a good thing. We need people, I'll say it, dare I say it, we need diversity of thought. We need diversity of opinions. We need new people entering this comic industry with new ideas that can push us in some new directions. We absolutely need that. And when we erect this giant wall around comics to prevent people from coming in unless they jump through the exact right hoops. First I've got to make friends with several indie artists, and I got to be careful who I'm following on Twitter, and then I got to rave about a couple creators who are up and comers, so I show that I'm a good ally, and then I need to somehow get connected to Donnie Cates, and then I need to try and get him to answer a direct message from me, and if I can do that, then maybe I can then get into. I mean, it's like, yikes, too much. That's not comics anymore. That's like the worst level of corporate ladder. It's just gross, just gross. I'll say this and I'll say it again. I've had many beers with many people in the comic industry and had a great time. And the names are all over the place. I've had wonderful conversations with people left, right, center. Mostly left, but that's okay. Nothing wrong with that. We have good conversations. We talk, and life is good. And there needs to be more of that. But we do need to change the culture within the comics industry to be more open to ideas. Certainly, be more open to new people wanting to enter it, and then lower the bar of any critique equals war. Because if your skin is so thin that you can't take basic critique, then you're lost. I mean, there's no hope for change. And if everything is going amazing, then swell. I mean, Jeff Bezos does not need to listen to a lot of critique on Amazon. I guarantee you he does it anyway, but he doesn't need to. That service is $1 billion enterprise. That's doing fine. Comics is not that. I'm reminded of Dav Pilkey showing up to an event and sitting and listening for 45 minutes after the event on some suggestions for places, things he could do with his books, with Dogman. This guy is this year undisputedly going to make the most money out of comics, and it will not be close. There will not be a close second. Why is this guy more interested in sitting there and listening to somebody talking about making like Dogman backpacks than somebody who's selling 2,000, 3,000 comics of copies of a comic at best, try and get some fan suggestions on how they could sell more and make more money for themselves? That is screwed up. Hands down, that's screwed up. For where I'm concerned, I just gotta, you got to find the will to keep throwing out the suggestions. But I'll tell you, some days it's hard. I don't know. Anyway, let me know your thoughts, your suggestions, your analysis on why this all goes on in the comments below. Like, subscribe, unsubscribe, dislike, hate, throw tomatoes, whatever you would like to do. And I guess I'll say this: give me your suggestions for the channel. It turns out I'm interested. I'd like to hear what those are. So by all means, if you have thoughts, let me have them. I'm interested. Anyway, as always, thanks for listening.